everybody. Welcome to Revival Town Podcast. I'm Chuck Tate. That's Andy King.
Hey, Chuck Tate. How are you doing?
Andy King, always doing great when I'm in the studio doing a podcast with you.
We got a fun one today.
We do have a fun one today. It's going to be a trip.
Oh, I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Yeah, but you know what?
Pun intended.
This is going to be crazy because it's been a few weeks, but this is the first time since we've recorded since the Queen's death.
Yes, I still remember standing in my home, in my kitchen. My phone buzzed. I looked at the notification, and it informed me that, and everyone, that Her Majesty had passed away.
You know what was crazy about, and I'm going to share this, I don't think he'll get into trouble, but mutual friend of ours who took us to the baseball game, Trent, his brother works for the Billy Graham Association, and about 3 hours before it was announced that the Queen had passed, he texted me. I don't know if you remember, on that day, all the royal family were summoned to Balmoral. You know, all of them were flying, right, to get there quick. And mid-afternoon here, he was like, actually, no, sorry. Mid-afternoon in the UK, late morning here, he texted me. I was driving, texted me, and he was like, hey, sorry to hear about the Queen. I said, yeah, she's, not doing good. And he's like, mate, she's actually passed away. And I was like, what? And because of his brother being part of the Billy Graham Association and are very close to the royal family,
right,
they had been notified that she had passed and that they were going to announce it at the 6 o'clock news in England. And sure enough, that's what happened. Yeah.
Wow.
And, and obviously he was like, don't tell anyone. I'm like, no, I won't. I'm not going to start a media frenzy. But yeah, it was a few hours. And when you look at the timeline, when he texted me, it was right when she had just passed.
Right.
So,
and then you were even featured in a local news write-up with giving a quote about her passing.
Yeah, obviously I am now the face for England in the Peoria area, because the TV contacted me and said, hey, we want to get an English person's thoughts on the Queen passing, and so got to honor her a little bit, and it definitely, it's been a little bit emotional. I said on the newscast, we're talking about someone who went in power when Sir Winston Churchill was the Prime Minister.
Right. Yeah, that's
crazy.
It's really hard to fathom.
Yeah, and so for everything she did for the country, obviously during difficult times, she and the royal family with the Rock, they would, steady the nation. I know sometimes it's hard for people in the US to, try and wrap their heads around what the royal family is and what they do, but there is a lot of good that the royal family does through charity, through, what they stand for. The Queen was very vocal with her faith. And, and then obviously the funeral happened. The death happened. Then there was all this lead up to the funeral. And a few stories came out of that. One that was funny in one sense was, I texted you and I'm like, I got a story for the podcast. So the night before the funeral, we had planned as a family, including my mom and dad and my sister, we were all going to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, because that was the time difference, and we were going to watch the funeral.
Right.
So the night before, there is a terrible storm that went through central Illinois. I mean, really bad. And our electricity went out at 11 o'clock at night. So we all go to bed, right? We're like, oh, don't worry, we'll be all right. Well, we wake up at like 10 to 4, and the electric is still out. Now, we are freaking out, right? Yeah. The Queen passes away. She's been 70 years on the throne, the day of her funeral, and the electric is out, which means not only the TVs aren't working, but the Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi, yeah.
Right? So
and your family who's from the UK, everyone is gathered ready to watch this.
Oh, mate, I've got the British flag flying outside the house. I mean, it's like a big deal, right? And so here's what happened. So I texted my dad because I still had power on my phone, and I had full power on my computer. So I could keep my phone charged through my laptop, right?
Right.
So I call my dad because they live around the corner, but they have electric stoves, right?
Yeah,
they don't have a gas stove. They have electric. So they couldn't even do their English breakfast that they were wanting to do. So I said, hey, come round. Let's try and figure this out. So they all pile around with their flashlights. We're in this house. we are cooking a full English breakfast. My wife is incredible at doing all this, and she's there doing this, and then we are all gathered around my iPhone watching the Queen's funeral because that's all we had. I had data service, so I could use that, but the only thing we could watch it on was my little iPhone. And then about 9 o'clock our time, the electric came back on.
5 hours later, right? Because you guys got up at 4 o'clock to watch this, and you're all huddled around your phone.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. I mean, I feel so bad for you guys. Like, this is a big deal. Like, oh man. So no cooking breakfast until the power came back on.
No cooking breakfast. No, we did the breakfast because we had gas.
Yes.
But we couldn't watch everything until I think it was they were going from where they put the Queen into the car, and then they were driving to Windsor. That's where it all came back on. But here's another great story, right? Talk about something that's pretty cool. A friend of mine who I used to be in a band with years ago is now the superintendent of Assemblies of God in Great Britain. And he has an incredible church. This church is doing some incredible work. The Friday night before the funeral, he is invited with a bunch of other leaders from different faiths to have dinner with the King Charles. So on social media, they get a picture, right? So that was cool.
That is cool.
Then the day of the funeral, pictures started coming from people that are watching the funeral on TV. And he is at the funeral. They show him walking down, and mate, not joking, he is across the way from the King, from Prince William, from Harry, all of
the
them.
royal family.
Yeah, he is like...
Yeah, you showed me the picture.
He is right next to him.
Yeah.
I thought, man, that's amazing.
Talk about opportunity.
Wow.
And how about David Beckham? I mean, standing in line 13 hours instead of using his celebrity status to skip the line just to hang out with people and pay his respects. I thought that was pretty amazing by him.
Well, I know a lot of people have got opinions about Beckham, right? As far as he married a Spice Girl and all this. I tell you what, he's one of the most legit guys on the planet. He is an incredible father, incredible husband, and what you saw in that line, that's what he has been like all his life. He's done a lot of stuff without the press doing, stuff on him, or they're always trying to get stories against him. But I did a caption, our captain, because he was the captain of the England soccer team. Yeah. But literally, as a nation, he was leading as a captain. So cool. Like, don't need to use that celebrity card, and
no, I know. I texted him. I was like, listen, bro. So proud of you, man. Okay. No, but I was a little bit distracted when you were talking earlier, and you, I don't know if you could tell, but
I could tell, but I wasn't going to say anything.
You weren't going to say anything. And I've been trying to find a text thread between you and me because our good friend, one of your best mates of all time, Dave Jane, who was on the podcast, texted you after you were interviewed by the paper.
Yeah. No, it was the TV.
For the TV, WEK or whatever it was, WMBD. And that's, I was trying to find that so I could read it, but I can't find it.
Oh man, you said it enough.
So funny.
Basically, it was this. It was he was acting as if he was an anchor on the news,
Yes.
And he said, we are now going to go to Andy King, the English correspondent, who has also watched all 4 seasons of The Crown.
Yeah. No, who is an expert on all things royal family because he has watched all 4 seasons of The Crown. Yeah, it's really funny.
Yeah.
So, good stuff. Got a great show today.
Today we have a super fan on the show.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about who's going to be on.
His name is David Beckham, and no. So this is Nicole Jackson's son, TRIPP.
Yeah. And not just TRIPP. His mom is coming as well.
Nicole is on as well. She's very well spoken. I just, she does such a great job communicating.
Yeah.
And it was so good to have her back.
Yeah.
And really special to have her son, TRIPP.
He was incredible. And Nicole and Matt need to be proud of TRIPP and how he was on the podcast. Nicole is here today to talk about an event that's happening globally next week, but especially it's going on in Peoria as well. But I wanted to talk about that. So why don't you sit back and relax and enjoy this conversation with Nicole and superfan TRIPP.
This podcast is part of the Edify Podcast Network. Edify is a faith-inspiring app that brings together thousands of the best Christian podcasts in one place for your listening enjoyment. Cut through the noise and grow your faith by diving into the world's top Christian podcasts today. Download the Edify app for free from the App Store or Google Play, or by going to edify.app. That's edifi.app.
All right, everyone, and welcome to Revival Town Podcast. It's time for another conversation with returning guest Nicole Jackson. She's an ER nurse, a modern-day abolitionist, and the co-host for the Walk for Freedom in Peoria, Illinois, a global movement sponsored by Christine Caines, A21, promoting advocacy and awareness with the goal of abolishing human trafficking. Joining her in the studio is her 11-year-old son, TRIPP. Nicole, welcome back. TRIPP, welcome to the first time. It's great to have you guys on Revival Town today.
Thank you guys for having us. We're so excited to be here. It's great to be on.
Oh, no, not many people know this, but TRIPP is probably one of our biggest fans of Revival Town Podcast. Is that true, TRIPP?
Yes.
I know we were talking earlier, and you've got a lot of different podcasts that you listen to, and we listen to other podcasts as well, right?
I just think it's cool that an 11-year-old listens to multiple podcasts.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That is cool.
He's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, now, TRIPP, you have listened to a lot of episodes, right?
That is correct.
All of them? Could we say all of them, or is there a few you may have missed?
There might be a few I might have missed.
That's okay. Probably most of them with Chuck, right?
Right, yes.
Yeah. No, I'm totally kidding.
Now, I always like to ask people this, for those that listen to the podcast, what would be some of your top ones that you've listened to over the years? Because you're a super fan. We're not just talking fan. He's a super fan. Right? Look at that. There we go. Tell me, what are some of your favorite ones?
I thought the Samid husband was really good. That's probably one of my favorites.
Which one?
Samid.
Oh, Samid, yeah.
Way back.
Yeah.
That was one of our early ones.
It really
Season
was.
1.
Yeah. Season 1. What did you like about that?
I don't know. It's just like the testimony was so I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just deep.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
You're a pretty deep kid,
I
aren't
was
you?
just going to say, man, yeah, it was deep. That was...
It wasn't deep. It was deep.
You know what? But it was a powerful testimony, and that's the
Yeah.
exact word. It really was. He shared how he came to Christ.
He was an
born
Imam,
Muslim.
a Muslim Imam.
Yeah, and it's an
mean,
incredible story. It really is. I mean, it could be made into a movie.
Yeah, if you go back, but boy, you've got to go back to season 1. If you just go onto revivaltownpodcast.com and just go to season 1, you'll be able to find Samid's interview there. And it really is incredible. This guy was literally left for dead. Here in Peoria, he was left for dead and miraculously overnight in the hospital, all wounds, all just bruises, everything left.
Yep.
Huge
He was healed.
testimony to being healed. And so definitely check that out. So Tripp, what are some of the others? Is there any? I mean, I know your mom was on once. That's got to be in your top 5, right?
Yeah. It was. I can't remember who you guys interviewed. It was one of the singers for Elevation Worship, maybe? I don't know.
Delirious?
Maybe?
Maybe the Delirious Boys or Leland. We've had a lot of
It
singers.
might have been Leland. Might have been Leland. I don't know.
The Waymaker? That song, Waymaker, Miracle Worker.
Oh, singing. All right.
yeah.
Come
That
on.
one?
Maybe.
We've had a
I
lot.
can't remember. You also like Billy Hollowell. Remember the guy he wrote Playing with Fire, and we listened to the Playing with Fire
Oh,
podcast?
yeah, I really like that one.
Yeah, he is
so
good. Oh, he's
good
probably
people.
busy this time of year because coming up to Halloween.
Right. Yeah,
That was
I
another
had
one.
the opportunity to meet him in person just a few months ago. So
That was one of the other episodes that was deep.
Well, it is awesome having Tripp with us today. The super fan Tripp, not just Tripp, it's super fan Tripp. Okay.
So today it's Tate and Tripp.
Tate and Tripp. Whoa.
Tripp and Tate. Tripp and Tate.
But we are not just here to have super fan Tripp on, but you actually brought your mum with you, which is nice.
Yep.
Yep. And Nicole, I know you are doing some incredible work in the Peoria area. And yes, we have a global audience that are listening to this from all over. But there's something that is happening this next week, as this is aired out this next week, that we wanted you to come on and be able to share about, so that people in the Peoria area, central Illinois area, could come and be a part of. So Nicole, could you tell us a bit about that and the story behind it as well?
Yeah, sure. So we will be embarking on, I believe this will be our 5th year, hosting in Central Illinois, the Walk for Freedom. It is a global walk to raise awareness through 821, which stands for Abolishing Slavery in the 21st Century, about raising awareness locally in everyone's area to have a global impact. The idea is that when you raise awareness against trafficking, you enable people to come alongside you to advocate and then eventually abolish trafficking. So we know that most victims of human trafficking are truly hidden in plain sight. We call it a global epidemic because it's everywhere, but also it's really hard to see. So until we kind of change the lenses of how we look at people and their situations, those victims unfortunately could be missed. And we know that 99% of victims are never rescued. And so the idea is that as a local community, when we can kind of take the blinders off and see what it looks like specifically in our area, or whatever city we're from or nation we're from, what it looks like in our area, then we can advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves and who may not even realize that they are being trafficked. That is the story of a lot of survivors, is that I didn't even know I was being trafficked because there's so much manipulation and deceit that happens in that victimhood. So that's our goal, is just to raise awareness locally for a global impact. We know that trafficking is supply and demand. It's a supply and demand industry. And so that when we can interrupt that demand, then that supply will be limited, and that leads to more people being free.
Yeah, it's so good. And Nicole helps the Dream Center out a lot, really in just education. You've done some, obviously not during COVID, but since COVID we've had a session, and before COVID we've done a few classes where our staff, volunteers, people in the community, it's open up to anyone, Chuck, that they can come and just learn. And Nicole is brilliant at this. It's not just, hey, here's a 10-minute talk. I mean, this is like a day type of thing where, because of your job with being an ER nurse, you're able to obviously see, you don't talk about patients or anything, but you see things, and this is what really sparked what you do, right? Especially
Yes.
with the fire and the police and
Yeah.
ambulance. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So Peoria Area EMS, we work closely with them. My husband's actually the medical director for them, which is just a super cool God story.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, it does. It does help. It works out. You know, there's positioning, right?
Yeah,
so God-appointed position. So, we previously, I didn't really know a lot about trafficking. I'd heard about it, but I think, like most people, my conception was just this idea that it didn't happen here, or it didn't look like what I had anticipated it happening. I was handed the book Undaunted by Christine Kane, and I read that, and literally read it on an airplane ride, and was just crying and truly just so broken, because I realized in that moment there are people that I had encountered in my career that were trafficked and that I had missed. And so that kind of sent me down this trajectory of, what are we doing in healthcare about human trafficking, and being aware, specifically in the emergency department or in first responders, EMS, because we're kind of the gateway to the rest of the hospital, right? And so I also belong to an organization called the International Association of Forensic Nursing. It's where I learned and was trained on sexual assault nursing. And through that, legitimately within just a couple months of reading this book and having this conversation, and also having the conversation with Matt about first responders, EMS, ER, and all this, there was launched the Blue Campaign, which that was an article published on IAFN about the Department of Homeland Security stating, hey, we have a problem with trafficking, and what can we do? How can we enlist people who are already in positions to raise awareness and advocate? And so they actually came up with the Blue Campaign, which specifically seeks to train first responders, fire, EMS, on how to spot for signs of trafficking, either when they're doing building pre-planning, building checks, when they're inside of a house, or when they're responding to calls. And really the unique position that fire and EMS are in. And so all that happened in a very short time. We thought about attending a walk, realized there wasn't one locally, and so we also decided, why not host the Walk for Freedom here too as well? And so when we were doing that, we were able to meet with Peoria Fire and East Peoria Fire chiefs, talk about our numbers, talk about what we see here in Central Illinois, and go ahead at that point. And when in launching the walk, making sure all of our first responders are trained appropriately on recognition. So PA EMS actually is the first that we know of, is the first EMS system in the nation to have a trafficking protocol, so that when someone is identified, here are their next steps. And it really gives that provider the opportunity of, okay, I saw this, now what do I do with this information? We tend to like algorithms in healthcare a lot, so it's something that's already kind of set up for them. It gives them the tools in their tool belt that when they're on scene and when they're interacting with patients, what do I do next, sort of thing. And then we also partnered with Dream Center and that rescue room that's there, that all of our fire trucks and ambulances have a card on there, so that when they encounter someone who doesn't necessarily need to go to the hospital, but just through building rapport and building those relationships with the community, they're able to pass them a card and say, hey, when you're ready, this is where you get help. So
the card that we created, it just says, we can help.
Right.
Because for these guys, they may be in a room where there may be someone who is over them, right? And they can't say, do you need help?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like we create like a business card that can be slipped to someone, and it's a direct line to our housing director that she can then, get people out, however that is. And sometimes it's just, can you meet me at this place? The gal will say, can you meet me? And it's a lot of it is, NYKOLE helped me with this, really helped me understand this, and with what we see, the human trade is the most that the Dream Center sees, right? We have a lot of homeless ladies that come to the Dream Center. Right now, we have more than ever before. We used to be averaging around 70 people a night, women and children. We're now at 135 to 140 every night. Wow. In the last 3 months, that's grown. And so, and our average age is 9 years of age. So we have a lot of single parent moms with kids, but there's a lot of women that come to us that they've moved to Peoria for a reason, whether it's a boyfriend or it's a job, and one of those two does not happen. So because they've moved from another city to relocated. Peoria, their network is not here anymore. It's in the city that they came from. So Chuck, if something happened to you, you could reach out to me and say, hey, can I come and crash on your couch? Because we're local.
Again.
But what happens with a lot of the women that we see, that network is in another town. And so they become homeless, not by choice, but just by circumstances. And so, but what happens is before they get to us, sometimes they will still stay with that boyfriend. And that boyfriend will be, well, you can stay here if you do X, Y, and Z for me to stay here. I learned all this through NYKOLE and our housing department, Christy, and how this all works. And it happens a lot.
Wow. So then correct me if I'm wrong, NYKOLE, but there are a lot of people that probably have this misconception of what human trafficking looks like because we've seen the movie Taken with Liam Neeson, right? You see that and we think that's all it means, but that's just a small percentage of it, correct?
Correct. So most people who are enlisted and recruited into trafficking, about half of them is through a fraudulent offer, through a fraudulent job. So you can have a better life, or we can put food on the table, you know, whatever X, Y, or Z is, through this promise of something better is going to happen, and like truly a false job offer. They don't know that they're going to be prostituted. So I think that's one of those misconceptions. And again, Rebecca Bender, I don't know if you guys follow her. She is a trafficking survivor. She has now started an organization where she also helps women get out of trafficking and move on in that next step in their journey. Andy's favorite word.
Yeah, there you go. Journey.
There it is.
Let's go on a journey.
There it is. Yeah. But she talks about how she was a single mom and she had met someone, and she was the lover boy. We use the term quotes here, the lover boy method, where it's a significant other who's like, hey, I've been providing for you. I've been helping. Now it's your turn, and I need you to help put food on the table, and I need you to sleep with this guy. It'll only happen a few times, right? And then here we, look back, and years later, now she's being prostituted by someone who supposedly loves her, but also there's a trauma bond that is now created. And so it's really, really hard to leave, and understanding that a trafficker is brilliant at exploiting vulnerability. So whether it's a single parent who doesn't know how they're going to pay their bills, or someone who's housing insecure, we know about 68% of trafficking victims have some sort of housing instability, which makes them prone to being vulnerable. And so just being mindful of that. It doesn't look like the movie Taken. Most victims do have freedom of movement because there's so much shame involved in trafficking, and there's so much manipulation. Those are the chains that are bonding people and keeping them in that situation.
Wow. Man.
Heavy stuff.
Tripp, I hear that you did something for your homeschooling. What was that you did?
It was a presentation about the Walk for Freedom, to make it more aware to people just in the community we know, so they can bring it out to the people they know, and etc., and are able to host this walk this year, and help abolish slavery.
Brilliant. And
love it.
Did your teacher, your mom, did she give you an A for it?
I'm assuming yes.
Well, listen, Chuck and Andy, we're giving you an A just for touching that whole subject. Amazing.
Yes,
Thanks.
and I went on the Walk for Freedom. Was it last year? I had the opportunity. It was my first walk experience, and loved it.
I always want to go, but it's always my anniversary weekend. And so, it's a little bit like, I can't do that. But we do try and get the bus for the guys, because they walk to a place and then get them back. And the Dream Center tries to partner as much as we can about it. What was that, Chuck? You were going to say?
Funny story about the bus to get people back. Because it was my first experience last year, and because apparently I'm not reading instructions,
No.
My daughter and I went, and we parked where the walk began. And when the walk finished, we realized, wait, our car is somewhere else. Everybody else's vehicle was parked where the walk ended because they got there early enough to ride a shuttle to where the walk began.
Oh.
So I had to hitchhike. No, Savannah and I had to get a ride to our vehicle.
You have problems with this because when you came to the Dream Center golf outing, you were waiting for a ride and it didn't show up, so you had to walk to the nearest Starbucks.
Right.
Of all the places you
carrying my
went to.
30-pound golf bag. It was almost a mile. But no, I honestly, yeah, I ended up getting rid of one of my vehicles, so I've had my daughter drive our other vehicle, and then I actually borrowed a vehicle from some friends of mine. They've been very gracious. I've had it for like 4 weeks, and
This is a nice ride.
yeah. So
Well,
fix that problem soon.
Yeah, well, Nicole, why don't you tell us again a little bit about the walk for those that maybe just tuning in, where it's at, how you do it, because it's going to be a little bit different this
Correct.
year, right?
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about
So
that.
Chuck, make sure you're paying attention. It's a little different.
All right, I'm going to take notes.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
All right, get out your notepad.
Yeah, because we're announcing this, we're promoting this.
It'll be this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So it's October 15th. It's a Saturday. We are going to start at 10. So just come a few before to make sure we can check you off our registration list. But our goal this year is to start around East Peoria Fire Department, that Fond du Lac Library area. A couple things are just weather dependent, but it will be in that area. There will be an email that goes out even up to this date. We will send something out the night before. So you're not too late. Go ahead and pop online and register. But we'll walk from East Peoria Fire to Peoria Fire. When we get to Peoria Fire, we'll have some sort of snack, something to eat, and then we'll go ahead and do a community conversation, just like a brief lecture on what trafficking looks like in our area, just to kind of end that day, because we have offered it before in 2 separate events, so we thought it'd be really just efficient to offer it like on the day of the walk when people are engaged in really what resources we have in our community and how pivotal Dream Center is also with the Walk for Freedom, and not just hosting and providing an area for someone to be rescued from, but really in preventing vulnerabilities, especially in youth. We know that 1 in 4 victims of trafficking are children, and so we have a very vulnerable population in Central Illinois, and so we just want to make sure that we can equip our community to intervene when there needs intervention, but also to be preventative as well.
That's so good.
It really is.
So make sure that you are coming out. The date again, Nicole?
October 15th.
October 15th this week.
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. Santa's coming to
Starting
town.
in
Sorry.
East Peoria Fire Department. Ending up in Peoria.
Correct.
Noted.
Yeah. We'll have a big sign just for you, Chuck.
Yeah, they've made it just for you.
Flashing lights and everything.
Nicole, thank you so much. I know before we start ending here, I did want you to, for those that live in Illinois, I want you to just give us some of the stats about Illinois and even the Peoria area when it comes to trafficking and this whole world, because a lot of people, I think, and Chuck, you can speak into this as well, always think this stuff happens in just Chicago. Right? Or LA or New York or, the big city.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen around here. Can you speak into that just for a
Yeah,
minute?
sure. So Illinois is 9th in the nation as far as trafficking cases. 80% of cases in Illinois come from Central Illinois, so not from Chicago. Trafficking,
So let's think about that a minute.
Yeah.
80%. We're the 9th in the country, but 80% of those are in this area.
Mm-hmm.
That's startling for
It
people.
really is.
That is really startling and bonkers.
It's bonkers.
It is
Thank you.
bonkers, yeah.
What a
Yes,
word. What
yeah,
a word. Bonkers.
You listen to Tate as mate. You don't
That's
just
right.
shut down the podcast after the interviews.
That's right.
Okay, carry
Yeah,
on.
so 80% is in our area. We know that human trafficking is the fastest growing organized crime, and it always follows either the sale of drugs or the sale of guns. And it's so high in our area because we have a huge problem with opioids, and we know that, and I don't want to get like political or anything here, but we do know that the Mexican drug cartel does have a presence moving through our area, and that's why we have such a huge problem. So just the same route that is taken to move drugs and traffic drugs is also what is used to traffic people, and not just to traffic people, but then to use them either as drug mules and whatnot. But some of them also have a dependency on substances, so that is also a vulnerability. So how are they going to pay that back? either by being prostituted out or used as a drug mule. And so because of our location, really intersecting to Indianapolis, Chicago, and St. Louis, that's one of the reasons we are a prime area. Plus we have a lot of rural communities, which it's really easy to hide people in those. And I think one of the misconceptions is that so many people think that a trafficking, it's this huge ring of 50, 60 people. That's not necessarily the case. It could be a woman being exploited and sold by her boyfriend, or a child by a parent. And it's typically someone that they know, someone that they trust, because that vulnerability has to be exploited. And how do you find out about a vulnerability? You have to establish some sort of trust with that person. So that's really kind of the nuts and bolts of what we see in our area. We know that about 87% of survivors were evaluated by a healthcare provider at least once, and were not screened or evaluated appropriately before being a victim of trafficking. And so we have a huge medical community here. So I think it's reasonable to expect us to do better and to advocate better.
Yeah, good. Chuck?
Yeah, people need. I think everyone, even listening, we need to pay attention to our surroundings.
Absolutely.
And always be aware of perhaps that somebody could be exploited. You know, I saw a video where a young girl was getting ice cream by herself.
I saw this.
Yes.
Do you see this? Yeah.
Yes.
And there was a woman, a normal looking woman, who was talking to her, and there was a car close by waiting, and the goal was to get her in the car, but somebody else was aware of what was happening and came to her aid.
And that's where most rescues come from. I think it's over 80% of rescues are from a bystander. So someone said, well, this is weird. I don't know what to do with this, but I know this isn't right.
Right.
So again, that's why the community really needs to be aware.
So good. Chip. I wouldn't say Chuck.
Chip.
I was looking at Trip, and I was thinking of Chuck, so I just went Chip. Trip. Now, obviously, your mom's pretty passionate about this, right? And it's a bit of an adult topic, right?
Yeah.
But are you able to talk with your friends about what she does, as far as like, you got to come on the walk and you got to help? Are you able to do that, or do they not understand?
I feel like you can, but I feel like some of the details are
A little.
Yeah,
A little.
but yeah, I feel like I could.
Well, it sounds like you did with your homeschooling thing, right?
Yeah.
You obviously, now, when you did the homeschooling, was it a talk, or did you have to write it out?
It was more of just like a presentation.
But you spoke. It was a spoken presentation, but you had notes on your iPod.
Yeah.
And was this to other students or just to your mom?
To other students.
So what did they think?
They thought it was like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, but you're going to get them to the walk, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yes.
That's good. Well,
Like, that's a crazy talk, but that's a cool kid. I like
that's a
Trip.
cool kid. Trip
Right.
is a cool.
Yeah, so they're thinking.
Cool cat right there.
Yeah.
So well,
Humble, very humble.
yeah, very humble. Yeah.
That is great.
Well, Nicole, Tripp, it's been amazing to have you on. Now, you know, because you're the super fan, you know that this is not the end, right? We've got to first see if you guys would be up to praying, right?
Yeah.
For some of the things that you've been talking about. So I'm going to let your mom start, and then we can go from there. Does that sound good? You're going to tag team, or you want just your...
Yeah, do you want to pray, buddy?
Sure. Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Jesus, we just thank you for who you are. You are holy, you are mighty, you are a friend. You meet us where we're at. You have a heart for the broken. God, you see us, you love us, and you love all these people who are just in the throes of trafficking. You love the traffickers and the victims, God, and you are the one who can just change hearts. And so we just invite you into this talk. We invite you to this walk, God, Holy Spirit. We just invite you just into this mess, because Jesus, you can clear it all up. There's nothing and no one who can outrun your grace and your mercy and your kindness. So Jesus, we pray for those who are victims right now, God, that you would just be so present with them, that you would just open up their eyes, give them a way out, that you would provide that community member who can see them, Lord, and just help them get free. And we also pray for the traffickers, God, and we pray for just the men and women who are also paying for sex, God, and paying to exploit these people, God, that their hearts are just changed, Lord, that they have a radical encounter with you, Jesus, and that they are just set free of this. And that they just are no longer buyers and contributors to this industry, but Lord, that they just have a complete turnaround and become abolitionists themselves. God, we know that you can do it. We just pray, God, and we just seek you in this, and we just pray that we are a people that see others, and we see others well, and we pray for our walk, Jesus, that you are just honored, and that there is just a huge outpouring of people who want to say, hey, not in our community, and that we see others, and that we love others as you do, Jesus.
And that just that you see all, help us to know that you see all, and even though it looks hectic in the moment, that you have control over everything, and you have everything for a purpose, and help people to be inspired to know what to see, and to be able to help these people, God, and that these people, that their hearts will change and they'll come back to you, and that they have a radical change. And yeah.
Amen.
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 Jesus' name.
Thank you, Tripp.
Good job, Tripp. Good job.
Thanks.
Well, what I'm going to do next is, Nicole, if people want to follow what you guys are doing, what's the best way to do that?
Instagram at walkforfreedom_Peoria. There's a link in there as well for people to register for the walk as well. If they don't have Instagram, you can just go to 821.org/Peoria and register there.
Brilliant. And tell us again about, because Chuck's sitting right next to you, but I guarantee he's already forgotten what he's got to do.
Yeah,
right?
October 15th, we were going to start walking at 10 a.m., so get there a little bit early. We'll be meeting around the East Peoria Fire Department area in Fond du Lac, like that Fond du Lac Library. So we'll have a sign. You'll come there. We'll walk to Peoria Fire. There we're going to wrap up, have a little bite to eat, because, we're good Midwesterners, and food's always appropriate.
Oh, Chuck will be...
There you go.
Yeah, you nearly got me away from the anniversary.
Just
Right,
for the
yeah.
food, probably get some Chick-fil-A because it's the Lord's chicken. It's anointed.
yes.
And then just have a conversation about what it looks like in our area, and just so we can be a better community. And then we will have a shuttle, I believe, back to people's cars from Peoria Fire. So they could either take an extra walk that day or get shuttled back.
All right.
Awesome.
I'm getting shuttled back.
There you go.
Okay, so you know what's next, don't you, Chip? Tripp.
You did it again. So join Chip on Peoria's Walk for Freedom, because I'm going to be there and Tripp's going to be there. So Chip will
Considering
be
everybody's
present.
talking about chip, I'm assuming we're having chips and salsa.
Oh,
Yeah,
come on.
hey.
Look at that. That's brilliant.
Right,
That's brilliant. So what's next on the podcast? What is normally after the prayer?
Tate and his mate.
No,
We're
before.
not there yet.
The big.
The big three.
Yeah.
Oh, the big
All right,
three.
yes.
Okay. Do you want to start, Chuck? Nearly got
You
you.
could start calling him Truck.
Yes, I will.
Go for it. Oh,
All right.
You're right.
I'm right. All right. So my question, Tripp, is this. I want to know. I on Instagram, I've seen your mom she can throw down a mean garden. All right. I mean, I want to know, what is your favorite vegetable?
Ooh, I'd probably either say cucumbers or carrots.
Cucumbers or
And
carrots?
are they from your garden?
The cucumbers would be.
Okay. You didn't do carrots this year? No.
Didn't do carrots
They're
this
hard to
year.
do. They're hard
Yeah.
to do. I've tried
We
that.
got sweet potatoes.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. All
Sweet
right.
potato fries, maybe.
Yeah.
Yum.
Yeah.
Okay.
However, I hate beets.
Oh, I love beets.
They're the best.
Oh.
They're the
I'm with
best.
you, Tripp.
Now, did
No
you grow
beets.
them?
No.
Did you grow? Yeah. See,
I'm
I
the
tried.
I'm the only one who will eat them. So.
Beets are just gross.
Oh, no.
There's nothing good about them.
Oh,
I like you.
They discolor things and they taste gross.
do you
What's
like
the point?
Brussels sprouts?
Yes.
Oh, I love Brussels sprouts with a good roast dinner.
Yes, I love Brussels sprouts as well.
Oh man.
So,
Okay, my question is this: you mentioned that this podcast is one of in your top 5.
That is correct.
Can you tell us about some of the other ones you like?
One of the other ones I like is Real Cool History for Kids. It's about history told from a biblical worldview perspective, and they go from anything from the Revolutionary War to like 9/11 to literally anything. It's actually really fun.
Cool.
And there's this other one, Greeking Out, which talks about Greek myths and legends, which is cool to learn about.
Yeah.
You're a smart kid.
Especially because a lot of our words today come from Greek or Latin words.
Okay, you know what? You need to help Andy with Tate has made.
Oh man, that's great. That's great. Okay, Chuck, you got the last one.
Okay, all right. Last one. My question would be, what is, and I'd like both of you to answer this. What is your favorite place to travel outside of Illinois?
Ooh, you go first.
I don't know. Some of my favorite places to travel is Boston. I really like Boston.
Oh, I followed you on that trip via Instagram. That was a good trip. That was.
So I
that
did
was
a
a
wedding.
trip.
Yeah, it is.
A trip.
Oh wow, that's a dad joke right there.
So I've never been to Boston. I did a wedding in Massachusetts, and I went to the Basketball Hall of Fame, but I didn't go to Boston. And it's one of my greatest regrets because I want to go to Boston. Some really good friend of mine, they just got back from Boston.
There's a lot of good history there and things like that.
No, there's not.
Yeah, and
Because that's where they kicked the British out, Trip.
Well,
oh, yeah, you got a story about that.
I got a story about that. I nearly got killed in Boston because I wore an English soccer shirt on July 4th.
yeah, it's
yeah.
a bad choice.
It was a bad choice.
Poor
Bad
decision
choice.
making there.
First 4th of July.
I'm a
America.
Larry Bird fan too. That's why I love Larry Bird's
Boston.
my all-time favorite basketball player.
Good.
Played for the Celtics.
But Nicole's got to answer
Yeah, I
this
know.
question as
So,
well.
yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Oh man, I'm torn. So I know it's so like cliche. I truly love Disney. I love it so much. I feel like there's so much magic there. It's so happy. Everyone is. They have the best food. You just walk on. Everything's taken care of. You don't have a care in the world. But I would also say Washington D.C.
Oh,
Those are places I also like too.
We were like.
I almost
DC.
got arrested there.
There's a story there.
There is a story. We should.
Was this before Christ? Is this BC?
This was a ministry trip.
Oh, even better.
You want to hear it?
Come
Yes.
on.
Yes, I want to hear
Okay.
it. I must.
By the way, regarding Disney, my wife loves Disney, and we went when our kids were like 5 and 2. It's been a long time, but we went there for our honeymoon.
It's
We went to Disney, and Bill Vanderbush, who's been on the twice. He lives
So
in
good.
He lives in Disney.
And the Disney cruises,
Right.
you'll not have a better
we haven't
cruise
done
in your
that.
life.
Wow. Okay.
That was one of the most fun experiences.
I bet.
Disney cruise?
A Disney cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been on one cruise, but it wasn't a Disney cruise.
Did you get arrested on the cruise ship as well? Or
No, but
Oh, no.
I do have a story about that, but that's not appropriate on today's podcast. Okay, so and it was my wife was present with me, and we just ended up on the wrong deck.
It's fine.
Oh, my God.
So anyway, my Washington D.C. story is I was living in Tulsa, working for a national youth ministry, and we were traveling all throughout the country doing youth conventions, and we ended up driving through D.C. and it was just our road crew, and so we're pulling a 12-foot. We were in a van, and it was this is a cargo van, and we were pulling a 12-foot U-Haul with all of our sound and lights and gear. This is before we had a big 24-foot truck. But it was shortly after the Oklahoma City bombing, which I'm not making light of. And we living in Tulsa, felt the effects of that as far as, it rocked the nation. Obviously, this is way before 9/11. And so within a week of the Oklahoma City bombing going off, and if you're familiar with that bombing, Timothy McVeigh parked a Ryder truck, which is like a U-Haul Ryder truck. It was full of explosives, and that's what did it. All right, so now 1 week later, we're in D.C., right near the Washington Monument and all the sites, and we pull up to a stoplight, and I didn't think about this. Like, hey, we're in a cargo van. There's no windows. We're pulling a huge
Oh, no.
I see what
U-Haul.
this is going.
And we had just eaten fast food, and we stopped at a light, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to throw this trash away. and I had a big bag of trash, and I jumped out and I ran as fast as I could because I knew the light was going to turn green. And I jumped up in the air like I was slam dunking a basketball.
Oh, no.
Threw it down, and then I ran back, and I jumped in the van. I'm like, go, 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 because the light hit. And a security guard went flying, running into the trash and got on his radio, was like, calling, like, stop these guys. What are they doing? Anyway, I didn't think about it at the moment. Like, that was not very smart. So I'm glad I didn't get shot, and
Right.
I did not get arrested. We did not even get pulled over, but we ended up going back around, and he was going through all the trash to make sure. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Phew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Way
that's my
to
story.
go, Chuck. Way
Yeah.
to go. Well, we want to. Oh, good job. Yeah, you even got a clap from Superfan. That's great. So,
All right, we're going to make a chip shirt.
Yeah.
well, we want to thank you guys for coming on to Revival Town podcast. Is it good? I mean, like you're behind the scenes now.
Yeah, that's
He's
cool.
not behind the scenes. He's in
it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you get to see behind the scenes, but yeah, you're right now. Like the mic is in front of you. You're on the podcast.
You are Revival Town right now. Is it
That's-
cool?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's like fulfilled your dream. You've always wanted to be on a podcast.
I did.
There you go. There you go. Well, guys, we want to thank you for coming in today. Tripp, you've been amazing. I know all the 11-year-old girls are going to want your address now.
Downside to being on a podcast.
my
Nicole,
goodness.
again, why don't you just give us the details about this next Saturday, what's going to be happening, and then people can get in touch with you as well.
Yep. So you can follow us at Walk for Freedom _Peoria on Instagram or a21.org/Peoria. October 15th, walking starting at 10, ending at Peoria Fire with a community conversation. And we should be all wrapped up by 2 p.m. So we
Great.
would love to have you. And if you're not local, you can find a walk in your area. Just go to a21.org/walk.
Great.
Yeah.
Well,
And
we
get
want
Christine Kane's book.
Yeah. Undaunted.
Undaunted. Yeah.
Must read.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming
you,
on to the
guys.
podcast.
Thank
we
you,
do.
guys.
We do thank you for taking time to come in studio. Most people are zooming in. No.
Only
You're coming.
only a handful have been in the studio.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
you guys rock.
Tripp, do you want to just say to everyone, thank you for listening to the podcast, and we'll end the show.
Thank you for listening to the podcast.
All right, we're back. Thank you, Tripp. Thank you, Nicole. Great stuff.
Tripp or Chip, whichever.
Chip.
Man, I was trying to say, I was thinking of you, and then I was talking to Tripp.
Tripp can't even say Tripp anymore. You're all tripped out. Who's the blocker now?
Hey, did you see how he had to get Plonker into the conversation?
yeah.
That was brilliant.
I tell you what, he was great. He was a ham too. He hammed it up, man.
it
That
was
was
great.
good. He brought us scones. Thank you.
Yeah.
for some-
Amazing
from
scones.
430 scones in Morton,
Yeah,
Illinois.
yeah.
So yeah, good stuff.
Well, you know what's next, and Nicole and Tripp are huge England fans. Like, they love anything British and all that. And so, if you are listening for the first time, we do a bit on the podcast called Tate and His Mate. And this is where we, or I, will throw an English word or phrase at my mate.
Or rhyming Cockney slang.
Whoa! Look at you! You got it.
You know what? I think it was the Nicole Jackson anointing because she just flows. She's so just fluid in her communication. It must have rubbed off on me, and I didn't botch that up.
Oh, that was good. That was good. So today, I'm not going to give you a word, but I'm going to ask you a question. Right?
I'm a little
And
nervous.
it goes a little bit with what's been happening in the UK with
Okay.
the Queen passing. I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
What in the UK, in England, well, actually Great Britain, what in Great Britain makes the qualification of a city to be a city? So you've got towns and you've got cities. What's the qualification between the two? Qualification. What is the qualification between a town and a city? What's the difference?
If the 5 letters shire are not on the end of the word, then it is a city. Otherwise, it's just a village.
No, because the whole shire, not shire. Shire is like a county.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Ah.
So like Warwickshire, Warwick is in Warwickshire.
Okay.
Warwickshire is the county. So you can have another go. What makes a city not a village or not a town?
Does it have to do with population?
No.
All right. The size geographically?
Nope.
Nope. Then I'm going to have to say, I have no idea.
Oh.
Yeah, I
Did
don't know.
stump
I don't
you?
know. What makes it a city?
Yeah. Are you asking me or?
You know what? I'm
You're going to be intrigued by this because of being a pastor.
okay.
What makes a city is if there is a cathedral in the city.
Seriously, I would have never guessed that.
Yeah. So, for instance, St. David's, which is the smallest city in Great Britain, is a city because there is a beautiful cathedral there. Right?
Wow.
Or like Coventry, near where I
That's
was
where you're from, right?
has actually 2 cathedrals because one was bombed in the war and they kept the ruins there and they built a new one. But the city that I grew up in, Nuneaton, which is a big, a few 100,000 in the town, is a town. It's not a city.
It's not a city because it doesn't have a cathedral.
No cathedral.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
So why don't you break down this for everybody that's listening? England, UK, Great Britain. Explain all that.
Oh, man.
For those who don't know.
Yeah, so basically there are many countries, right, that create Great Britain. So there's Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland. Southern Ireland is on their own, right? But these are all part of Great Britain. Yeah. Then there is the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is I was reading a stat that over a third of the world is under the Commonwealth. Right?
Yeah.
That's a huge amount.
I was really, honestly, very fascinated with that and how it is perceived in The Crown.
Yeah.
I actually, you can learn a lot from Netflix. Like, did you know in Cobra Kai that? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, but and I mean, it sounds crazy, but you were texting me during this whole time with the Queen, and you're like, seriously, I'm glad I watched The Crown because there were things like, for instance, I didn't know if you saw this or not. We were watching BBC, but they would keep going to the town where the mining disaster happened.
No, I missed that.
Yeah, and so where that school was.
Yes,
and I hadn't seen this since The Crown, but that whole area where the school was, they created that into a memorial garden. And there is a plaque that the Queen went, was there.
Wow.
And people go, and it's a very quiet, somber type area. And they had people there talking about when the Queen came. Yeah. So I wouldn't have, I know this sounds crazy because I'm not, I'm from England and everything. I did not know about that story until I watched The Crown. I called my dad, and my dad lived just a few miles and remembered, because he was a kid, he remembered when that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes it so much more real.
Yeah.
And I remember reading that the Queen, one of her greatest regrets, and it actually changed her life and how she became more empathetic to I mean, there was empathy, but she just didn't go when it first happened.
Yeah.
And she regrets that. And I think it kind of make who she was after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a lot of things. The one thing that I said on the TV when they interviewed me was, you can look at all different other heads of state and prime ministers and presidents and all this. But the Queen, now I know she wasn't perfect. No one is perfect. But they could never get a scandal on her.
Right. True.
Like she lived it, right? I mean, very strong Christian, and
Yes.
she really lived it.
And she was, I love the relationship that she had with Billy Graham.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I think that came through even
Impacted
from the
her.
text that I got from my friend,
right.
right? Because they reached out to Billy Graham's people
Yes.
Before anything else.
And then you sent me a video clip from a newscast where there's a priest who's a believer
Yep.
who was talking about her legacy and the impact and her relationship with Jesus. And I couldn't believe the liberty that was given to this guy to share what he did. It was powerful.
Well, and the thing that I was amazed at was even with the funeral, they were not scared to talk about Jesus. I mean, you know what I mean? All the way through it, I think there was 2 or 3 different services, and it was all about her faith. And in fact, the friend who was with the king the Friday night, he wrote on Instagram about how he was amazed at King Charles's faith, because he was in this room with him, listening to him. And so I think there's going to be something, carrying on with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
praise the Lord.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much,
good
everyone, for listening to Revival Town Podcast.
I forgot we were recording. That was like just hanging out talking.
Hey, there we go. There you go.
Without a spot of tea.
Oh man, we should have had the kettle on. All right.
Some coffee.
So, thank you guys for listening to Revival Town Podcast. We have a massive show next week. Huge.
Mammoth.
Next week, we have Carlos Whitaker on the podcast.
So cool.
What we would ask
Mr.
you...
Human Hope himself.
Yeah, and what we would ask for you to do is this week, or while you're listening to this right now, text 3 people and say you need to download Revival Town Podcast on your podcast, whatever you play it on, ready for next week. Carlos Whitaker is going to be in Peoria, October 20th for the Dream Center event. Tickets are still available if you want to go to dreamcenterpeoria.org and get tickets. He's going to be live in person. It's not video. He will be there. But we were able to grab an interview with him before. We did do this interview a couple of months ago because he's been on the road and things like that. But you're going to love it. So make sure you're telling people to download and get ready for next week's episode with Carlos Whitaker. I mean, you loved it.
Yeah.
Just
one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah. So make sure that you are with us next week and let people know. Chuck, been amazing.
Been good. Let's do it again next week.
Yep. Nicole and Tripp, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chip.
See you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Revival Town Podcast. Make sure you're following us on social media and remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, head on over to revivaltownpodcast.com.